May I invite Professor Zaid Kilani onto stage, please? It is indeed a very, very great pleasure and honor to introduce such a delightful person. He's what I call a neighbor's envy and an owner's pride. And if you look at his CV, he's the director of Farah Hospital, one of the largest institutes in the world for infertility treatment. He's a politician, a senator from the upper house of parliament in 2011, a great doctor, an MD from Göttingen University, West Germany. He's a geneticist, founder, president of the Jordanian Society of Fertility and Genetics, and has also published several papers. And besides this, a great organizer, organized several conferences held in Jordan. An academician, several scientific papers in several recognized journals like the Human Reproduction and Fertility Sterility. He's also he's an author of several books and part of the textbook of IVF and assisted reproduction. He's a researcher of his own right, a main investigator in several phase 3 trials. This is just not the end, it's only the beginning. He has made 2 instruments, one called the Kilani embryo transfer device, a hysteroscopic Kilani sheath. It doesn't end here because he's also a great obstetrician and has his own technique called the Kilani method, which deals with bulging membranes in patients of recurrent miscarriage. He's all in one. He is several things, and if I start reading his CV, it'll be dinner time. So over to you, Dr. Kilani. Welcome to India, welcome to Goa, and we are waiting to listen to you.
I would like to thank the organizing committee for giving me a very special honor to be in front of you, and in particular my friend, Dr. Ala Badia. Indeed, I'm glad to be in India. Yesterday, I told you that my family and my colleagues at the hospital, they told me because I am really ill after surgery, not to fly, but now I am very happy that I came, and amazing, I feel better here with my friends in India. Thank you. Yesterday, I remembered when I was a little boy, yesterday occurred to my mind that I was very fond of India, and still. And amazing, as a little boy in the school, I read the life story of Gandhi and Nehru. So this is really in me. Now, I know we are now before lunch, and I will try to make my talk friendly and short. Now, in 1978, I was labeled a madman when I started the IVF in Jordan. And I started in this very modest little building. And from here, the late King Hussein, after I got the first IVF baby, and gave me the Medal of Independence, which is the highest in Jordan. And I have part of this medal here. Now, with hard work, I would say day and night, we are now having this new building which will be ready in 2014. Now, ovarian hyperstimuation syndrome is an exaggerated response to controlled ovarian stimulation characterized by the shift of protein-rich fluid from the intravascular space to the fed space, mainly the abdominal cavity. That occurs when the ovaries become enlarged due to, this is here, one point to remember, follicular stimulation. That's one point which will be addressed. Thus, shift in fluid is due to increased vascular permeability. This is second point, our target, vascular permeability. In response to stimulation with the human gonadotropin. This is our real friend and enemy, HCG. The cardinal features are ovarian enlargement and increased fluid in the extravascular space. 3 types, mild, moderate, and severe. Severe, as you know, ascites, renal changes, coagulopathy, and pericardial effusion, and possible hyperthorax, and God forbid, death. The incidence is about 20 to 30%, and severe form requiring hospitalization is up to 2%. ICU admission 0.6%, 6 per 1,000. Mortality rate in the Netherlands and UK demonstrate an instance of 3 deaths per 100,000 IVF cycles. And notice this is in very advanced, very equipped centers, Britain and Netherlands, 3 per 100,000. I believe this is much more in underdeveloped country. About 70,000 IVF cycles were carried out at the Farah Hospital without any maternal death. Over the past 12 years, we did not face any case of severe ovarian hyperstimuation syndrome, which necessitated ICU, intensive care unit. Now relax. I will show you how we deal with our patient and not to face really this very ugly syndrome. Now, the pathogenesis. Here we start. We have iatrogenic made by us, doctors, and spontaneous. When we have changes in the chain of SH and the TSH replace the FSH, I will not touch this. But I have seen few cases with spontaneous in non-pregnant women and in pregnancy. But let's go to the iatrogenic. It's an acute effect of exogenous HCG administration, usually occurring within 9 days after oocyte retrieval. Now, late occurs after the initial 10 days period and is only poorly correlated to the ovarian response and is rather more correlated to the endogenous HCG produced by an implanting embryos. And here comes the game. And by implanting embryos, I mean, if you are in doubt and you feel the hyperstimuation syndrome, don't transfer, or at least transfer just one embryo, or to the administration of OHSS. Avoid administration of OHSS if you have the problem of, or the fear of facing the ovarian hyperstimuation syndrome. Now, he started the game. Now, massive recruitment and growth follicles. They come from nothing. I mean, it depends on your HMG dose or recombinant FSH dose. The more you give, the more follicles you have. Don't be greedy. I keep saying to my staff, I rather have no pregnancy better than have a patient in the ICU. So we start with very friendly protocol, I mean, rather average to low dose of HMG. Now, and if you have it, you will start the symptoms of the syndrome early in the first 3 days. And you have here the massive luteinization, and you have oversecretion of the vasogenetic molecules, and you have the space, abdominal space filled with ascites. This is the first 9 days. Now, if you concentrate on these 3 points, then you can avoid the ovarian hyperstimulation syndrome. A dose of gonadotropin, HMG, or recombinant FSH, dose of human gonadotropin, HCG, and vascular endothelial growth factor, how to deal with the vascular endothelial growth factor. Now, when we start putting a program to the patient, we took in consideration the following. AMH, which is indeed very helpful and rely very much on it, and then the count of the intrafollicle, then is it PCO patient or not, previous hyperstimuation, young age, more than 18 follicles, and serum E2 level above 2000. This when she is already on the program. But this can be prevented by low-dose HCG and agonist protocol with GnRH analog for final maturation, coasting, dopamine agonist, cancellation, embryo freezing, and embryoscope can be helpful for the future. We introduced this to our unit recently, and I believe this can really be helpful on preventing ovarian hyperstimulation syndrome. Of course, by selecting the proper embryo and transferring just 1 or 2 embryos. Our friend Bob Nicolai and Medan, they developed a new algorithm for ovarian hyperstimulation syndrome to prevent this syndrome. It was recently published in 2011. I enjoyed very much reading this paper, and I recommend this paper very much. And to my surprise, I found what they are written following this for the past 13 years. You have follicular phase, and day of ovulation triggering, you select the proper dose, reduce HCG dose, or you use the antagonist trigger dose to trigger ovulation. It depends on your protocol. If you are using the agonist protocol, then you have to reduce your HCG dose, and if you use the antagonist protocol, you go for the agonist dose to trigger your ovulation. And in the luteal phase, you have the choice. If you have extreme severe hyperstimulation syndrome, either you freeze your embryos or you go to plastocyst formation and you transfer just 1 and freeze the rest. Now, low-dose tissue. Already in 1987, our friend Hussam Abdullah looked into the matter and gave his patient for triggering of ovulation 2,000, 5,000, and 10,000 intermediate to have maturation. And what we found today, he found already in 87 that giving 5,000 and 10,000, it had the same result together in number of follicles, implantation rate, and pregnancy rate. But 2,000 does not work. This had the proper attention also by Kashyar, and he organized a sliding dose for giving the HCG. HCG is really the main troublemaker. I mean, if the E2 level is more than 11,000 picomole, he said cancel the cycle. This is, of course, if you are having the agonist protocol. But if you have the antagonist protocol, we will see in our study, you don't need to. But if the E2 is between 7,000 and 11,000, you reduce the dose. Here's the importance of playing with the HCG, how much to give. And if the dose is between 4,000 or the E2 between 4,000 and 7,000, trigger with 5,000 cg, and under 4,000, then you are free, you give 10,000. Now, his results were very convincing. Now, before the low dose of HCG, that was his success rate. And before the dose of HCG, before low dose, that was the freezing, I mean, very high. And after low dose, no need for freezing. He used to freeze his embryos. And severe ovarian syndrome, before reducing the dose, was very high, about 6%, and after reducing the dose, it was rather low, about 2%. Now, pregnancy outcome, amazing, very nice. Both groups the same. I mean, before reducing the dose and after reducing the dose. Let's go to our experience and result at the Farah Hospital. Now, between 2001 and 2013, we had about 4,500 cases with whom we used only 5,000 interactions of HCG. And about 500 cases, we used only 3,000. In order not to cancel cases, we reduced the dose. And in these two groups, we found that the number of oocytes obtained was about 13 to 18. And notice that in one case, we have the E2 level about 11,000, and in one case about 14,000. Yeah. Now, the mean number of embryo transfer was obtained was about 7 and 9. Mean number of transfer 3. It was here generous in transferring 3 because we have sometimes advanced age or repeated failures. But the bottom of the line, previous rate was here 32%, and here about also 32%. But the severe form of Harbison syndrome was 0. No need for admission to the intensive care unit and no death. Now the antagonist protocol with GnRH for final maturation. Now, just to remind you the basic physiology, you use the agonist to drive the LH outside the cell, and use the antagonist to keep the LH, the native friendly LH, inside the cell. Now, when you are using the antagonist protocol, you take advantage of the storage of the LH in the cell to achieve your final maturation and to have your ovulation. Now, how to select your patient? I mean, it's obvious. If you see such an ovary, it's really speaking to you, mind me, don't touch me, be careful. I mean, PCO, select the antagonist protocol. We go directly for it, yeah. Now, between 2001 and 2013, we have 1,500 cycles treated with the antagonist protocol. Look to this frightening figure, and I think a friend of mine, he has the same in Haifa, 15,000 A2 in the antagonist protocol. Even then, we were not dangerous, we were not courageous, we did not cancel the cycle, you see. So we continued with the cycle and gave the decamethil or the analog for triggering ovulation. Now the mean number of embryos obtained was about 8, and mean number of embryo transferred 3, and transfer cycle 1,400. Now the pregnancy rate was 26%, and severe ovarian Harbison syndrome was 0, and this is the bottom of the line. No, not a single case was admitted to the intensive care unit. Now, we were in a study giving recombinant LH for final maturation, and it was found, in fact, the study was stopped by Serrano, that 30,000 international unit was found equal to 5,000 HCG in terms of oocyte retrieval, fertilization rate, and pregnancy rate. Now, recombinant LH will be the ideal solution, but as I mentioned before, you need very high dose, and the price is not financially feasible. So they stopped the study. Now, the potential mediators for vascular permeability, this is another target, how to deal with this, the third point. The main thing, or the main agent for vascular permeability is the vascular intergrowth factor. And then you have the histamine, prostaglandin, and others. Now here, when you have the courage or you skipped your mind and you gave a lot of HMG or recombinant, you have to expect the hyperstimuation syndrome because you have many follicles. And with many follicles, you have a lot of corpus luteum, and then at the end here, you have cascade or you have explosion of vascular endothelial growth factor, and here it will damage the endothelial cells, and you have here the permeability. Now, the main aggressor here in this game is the HCG, which will enhance the MRA to drive formation of the vascular endothelial growth factor. If we stop or reduce the HCG, then you are far away from danger. Now, the vascular endothelial growth factor is the major capillary permeability agent in Ovarian fluid. Hence, vascular endothelial growth factor is demonstrated in highly vasculated corpus luteum and acts directly on endothelial cells to induce proliferation and angiogenesis. Messenger RNA to vascular endothelial growth factor is enhanced by HCG in a time and dose dependent way. Now we come here to some rescue procedure which is called coasting. Now the coasting involves withdrawing estrogenous gonadotropin injections and withholding HCG until the patient's serum estradiol level decreases to a safe level. Now it does decrease the risk of ovarian hyperstimuation syndrome. It does reduce vascular endothelial growth factor secretion and gene expression in glomerular cells and affects viability of small, medium follicles. Now, coasting. A combination of 18 or more follicles and or A2 of more than 5,000 picogram per liter on the day of HCG can predict 83%. I mean, here if you face this, I mean, be ready to face the syndrome. Can predict 83% of the severe ovarian syndrome cases with 84% specific. Prolonged coasting more than 4 days was found to be with a reduced oocyte numbers and quality. I mean, some have the case to do more 5 and 6 days, but it's useless. 4 is enough. Either you do your oocyte retrieval or you cancel the cycle. With a determined effect on implantation and success rate. It does lead to the selective regression of the pool of immature, small, and medium follicles. This is the target, is to stop the small and medium follicles to grow. Therefore, reducing the functional granular cell mass available for the luteinization and resulting in a decline in vasoactive substances involved in the pathogenesis of the syndrome, including the vascular endothelial growth factor. Now here the hyperstimuated ovary, and notice here hiding behind the naughty small follicles. Now if you continue when you give the HCG, this will make you the trouble. Now by coasting, this will have apoptosis, and then you can have or take advantage of the large follicles. Now you can see here clearly, you have here the E2 level, you start coasting, it does go up, and then down, and here at 4 days is really reasonable. At the same time, that's going through the tracker. It here goes up, and then start to decline. Now, in addition, you can give the dopamine, which really interferes with the phosphorylation of the point which is necessary for the vascular endothelial growth factor in the wall of the vessel and stop the action of the vascular endothelial growth factor. This is the action of dopamine. Now, inhibition of vascular endothelial phosphorylation in ovarian hyperstimuation syndrome, ironically, tyrosine hydrocolase gene, which is essential for dopamine synthesis, is downregulated. That's what makes things worse. Even the support for dopamine is in the hyperstimuation syndrome is downregulated. Therefore, it is wise to give the dopamine. Now, activation of the dopamine receptor pathway involved in regulation of angiogenesis. Inhibition of vascular endothelial growth factor. Number 2, signaling is dose-dependent to dopamine binding to its receptors. Now, the dose, it was found that at the day of HCG administration, 0.5 milligram daily of sabizabulin is given and continued for 8 days. Implantation and pregnancy were unaffected by sabizabulin, and this is documented by our Spanish friend Alvarez. Now, in ovarian hyperstimuation syndrome, tyrosine again hydrocolase gene, which is essential for the synthesis, is downregulated. High vascular endothelial growth factor expression is associated with decrease in dopamine production. Now, dopamine administration, therefore, we give the dopamine interferes with vascular growth factor effect observed in hyperstimuation syndrome. In conclusion, can ovarian hyperstimuation syndrome be avoided or minimized? The answer is yes. In fact, as I told you before, we carried out already 70,000 cases without facing this ugly, fearful syndrome, with better understanding of the pathophysiology of ovarian syndrome and the use of the appropriate protocol for controlled ovarian stimulation. Iatrogenic severe ovarian syndrome can be minimized or even avoided. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Zilani, for a wonderful lecture. Thank you for coming to India